righty. Well, welcome to our podcast and YouTube. And today I have the distinct pleasure of bringing on as one of my first guests to our rebranded podcast and YouTube channel, Rob Minton. I've known Rob here for over 15 years. 15 years I've known this man. And we'll talk about that story, but over the last 15 years, I've considered Rob a mentor, a coach, and over the years, a good friend. In fact, we had this conversation. He's like that brother I've never had, because one thing I love about you, Rob, is you read so much, and we're going to go into detail about this. And I do the same thing, but what's amazing is your ability to kind of take that content of what you read and kind of tell that story for a layman to actually understand the stories that you become. But what's interesting about Rob and how we actually met, Rob's this entrepreneur real estate broker. And when we initially met over 15 years ago, he had built this huge real estate business and empire. And with that, I was looking at something, Rob, you had built a 7-figure net worth during that time frame. And
yeah, pretty quickly. Yeah.
Pretty quickly. So welcome to the show, Rob. How you doing?
Well, thanks, Carlos. And that's funny because like you say that I've helped you a lot over the years, but it's actually in reverse. You've helped me. I can probably tell you 15 different things you've helped me with. So it's been one of these relationships that I'm so thankful that we've continued just because you've added so much value in my life.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. And it's amazing is that, over the years, I started to realize how much we have in common. We both have 2 kids. We both have a daughter in the same volleyball, same sports. So life is interesting how it brings people into your life that you need to have into your life. So
yeah, I'm just a year or 2 ahead of you.
Exactly. Yeah, you're close to the 50 here anytime, right?
Oh yeah, a couple months, unfortunately.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Rob, first, let's start with this. I know you were a CPA coming out of college. How in the world did you went from a CPA to become an entrepreneur into real estate?
The truth is, I did not like my CPA job. I hated accounting. And, it's funny. I just this week, I had took all of our tax returns, our business tax returns and everything. I don't even do our tax returns. This is how much I hate accounting. I took them to my accountant's office, and it's a small office, and I can see everyone that works in this office, and they all look miserable. I mean, they just do not look happy. So I don't know. I wasn't wired for it. I could do it, but it wasn't something I was passionate about, and I didn't really love it. And I was in the audit department of a big public accounting firm. So we would go to these businesses and audit their financial statements. And I'd go to work every day, and the people really wouldn't want me there. And so it just didn't really feel like I was adding much value. So I started investing in real estate and loved it. And so I transitioned from full-time CPA to full-time real estate guy, and which was not my mom wasn't very excited about that decision, but
that's understandable. Well, so you end up, obviously you get into real estate, and you own you start a brokerage, and you did some pretty significant things back 15 years ago, so much so that I was introduced to you through the Dan Kennedy world, other members that I'm still close friends with, and they said, you got to see what Rob's doing. And I had actually joined your coaching program because you started coaching other real estate brokers to do what you were doing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what happened was I'm going to start kind of at the one book, because you mentioned a book. There was a book. I'm sure you've heard of Kiyosaki's. I know you've read Robert Kiyosaki's book, and there's Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's a series of books. There's one particular book though that for me was a big impact. It was probably one of the biggest impact. It was titled Cashflow Quadrant. Mm-hmm. When I read that book, I was actually operating as just a typical real estate professional, helping pretty much any type of client. And I read that book, and I realized, I thought I owned a business, but I really didn't, because if I didn't go out and work, there was zero revenue for the business. So I realized, I need to actually start a business. I needed to develop systems in that business so that the business would operate eventually without my day-to-day involvement. So I kind of merged what I was doing personally, which was investing in single family rental properties, into my new business that I started, my brokerage. And I just focused my entire real estate brokerage on real estate investors. And we created some really cool systems for them. And we taught them how to buy homes and how to rent them and how to maximize cash flow and all these cool things. So I have to give credit to Mr. Kiyosaki, because that book really had a massive impact on me back at that point in time.
Excellent. And it's you did something, I think, what a lot of people that go into business they have a hard time doing. In fact, me personally as well, is you decided to build a system, because as an agent, you're just kind of working one commission at a time.
Right.
You're basically you're I guess what's the word I'm looking for? You're your own boss. But in fact, you're broke the minute you stop working.
Right.
You decided to build an actual business of agents working for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it was right around this time we had a friend of the family, it was a fireman from my wife's side of the family. He was working on a gutter up on a ladder, and he fell from the ladder, and he became paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy cow, like what? If I'm the sole breadwinner from my two young daughters, my wife was staying home with our children. I'm like, what if something happens to me, a car, anything? I mean, we're done, because the income stops. There was no salary. So yeah, I wanted to figure out a way where, you know, I could help other real estate agents sell homes and help build their businesses. And then having them on my team, and also indirectly built my business. So as I was helping them, my business was getting better. And it just, you know, that first time when you have revenue happen in your business without you being part of it, it's like life changing. You're like, oh my gosh, I just need to keep duplicating this, you know?
No, absolutely. And, you know, it's one of those things, even to this day, you know, being in the business that I am, you know, having hundreds of clients, you see what life can happen. I've seen multiple people come down with cancer, and I know you lost a close friend recently due to cancer. You have people dying from the COVID-19.
Yeah.
I just found out one of my clients in her 40s, it was literally on her deathbed just recently. And I had no idea. But what you said there is that, what do you do? And I think about this every day. If I were to go tomorrow, what does your family do?
Right.
You know, and I don't think, especially people in their 30s and 40s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, you really don't think about that. It's like that happens to somebody else, right? It doesn't happen to me. And
unfortunately, it happens to all of us, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think now, maybe because this 50 thing comes up, you start to think, well, that can happen at any time. And death doesn't necessarily even have to happen, right? It could be an extreme illness that knocks you out of work, and that income stops. It stops.
You're done. Yeah. I mean, and you know, today, not many people have huge reserves, right? I mean, you don't have like it's really difficult today to have 6 months of cash sitting in reserve. So, you know, I'm overinsured, life insurance. So like I kind of went through this process, and I wanted to make sure I had enough insurance. Like I have assets, investments that are providing income, but I also got like insurance too, because I just wanted to make sure if today, knock on wood, was my last day, is, you know, that my family would be covered, that I got their backs, and I did what I needed to do now so that they wouldn't suffer because I didn't plan properly. So yeah, it's just, you have to. It's not fun to do, but you got to.
So you started this real estate business, and again, you built a 7-figure net worth, and something happened to something happened to me while we were doing this, right?
Yeah.
Right. 2008 rolls around.
Right.
Talk about 2008.
The net worth that I built so quickly disappeared just as quickly. So I had my net worth was based upon real estate investments that I had made and the market values of those compared to the mortgages. And it was also based on my real estate brokerage, my business. And that business had grown significantly from everything we were doing. And then when the market crashed, since I was so focused on real estate, it had a massive negative impact on my net worth. The home values all dropped. The mortgages didn't. The real estate business suffered because people weren't buying real estate like they were prior to the crash. And so it had a huge impact on me, not only financially, actually it had more of a mental impact on me than it did financially. Financially, it was hard, but the mental side of it, you know, prior to the crash, I knew at some point in time I was going to get knocked down because, you know, building a business, it's part of the journey. And I always thought, you know, if I get knocked down, I'll recover. I'll be able to recover quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But the magnitude of that crash and what it did to my team members and to my clients, it knocked me down, and I stayed down for probably 5-6 years. It was really hard to overcome mentally for me.
And you know, I feel you, because I think it's the same thing happened to me. So much so, I didn't want nothing to do with business whatsoever. In fact, I came that close to becoming a minister.
Really?
I really did. A lot of people don't know that. I was actually kind of in training to take over a local church here.
Wow.
Because the ultimate goal was the minister was planning on retiring, and that's what I would end up doing. And I think a lot of that too was fear. I was afraid to go back into business. I was afraid. I didn't want that to happen again.
Right.
It's terrifying. And I remember when I decided to when I had decided to kind of just come out of that shell, like, okay, I can't be afraid. I was even thinking, do I go back to real estate? Do I go back into finances, taxes? And I came that close to going back into real estate again. But the fear of that happening again stopped me from going back into that industry altogether.
I hear you. I know exactly where you're coming from. And, you know, working through that mentally was probably the hardest thing I did, and was probably the best thing that I did, because, you know, when you go through something like that, you can write it off, right? Like you almost did.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could go back and say, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I do differently so that I don't put myself back in that situation again? And sadly, most people walk away entirely and they give up on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we just got multi-million-dollar educations through the crash, right? And
Right,
it's like,
right.
the best thing to do is to leverage what we learned and be better business builders and entrepreneurs going forward.
You know, it's funny. I was listening to an old Gary Vee YouTube talk he was doing, and this was like about a year ago. And he had asked the audience, if you're under 35, raise your hand. So, and it was like 90% of the audience. And he laughed. He says, "You guys have never been punched in the mouth yet." And when you get punched in the mouth, you know, the recession, you're going to know what it's like.
Right.
And we've been punched in the mouth. We took a lot of hits. So,
Right, yeah.
you know, going into kind of what's happening right now, and I think I mentioned to you in the email, I was excited with kind of what's going on, because I had that experience and I knew what not to do and what I need to do going forward.
Right.
And obviously, you've done something recently. You created a community, and I would imagine it's from the learning of what you've learned, called Cashflownairs. What is Cashflownaire community?
So I made up a word, and it's ridiculous, right? I mean, but I guess the reason why I did it, or just how I got to it, was the biggest lesson I learned from the market crash is not to invest for appreciation, right? Growing up, I kind of copied everyone, and I was trying to build wealth. I wanted to have a large net worth, because that's what I thought would provide happiness. And to build that net worth, I took all this risk. I got all these mortgages. I built this business, and then I had massive overhead in that business. And when the dust all settled in the crash, I was like, what do I really want? And what I really wanted was cash flow. Cash flow pays the bills. Net worth doesn't. So it was like, well, I don't need to go borrow all this money. I don't need to build this massive business. What I need to do is just focus exclusively on cash flow, buying assets that provide consistent cash flow, and then I can hit my financial goals without all the stuff that I thought I needed before. And so when I was going through all this, I was like, you know what, I can help people learn and avoid the mistakes that I made by sharing kind of what I've been through, what I've learned, what I'm doing today. And that's kind of what led to the Cashflownaire newsletter and small community that we have now.
Um, you, one of the things I loved, I know when you had created this community, I'm like, one, I knew how to be instantly part of it because basically anything that you put out, I have this thing in my head I need to get, because I know you take the time and effort to really, to put the work in on everything you do. So I may be one of your all-time buying customers because I buy it. And one of the principles there, you have three basic principles of the Cashflownaire concept. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I actually have multiple principles. Are you talking about like the?
Yeah, that's right. You have 20 principles.
Yeah.
The top three things: getting out of debt, using that whole concept.
Well, like I think like for me, like my primary goal isn't necessarily financial. My primary goal is to try to like live with peace of mind and happiness. And so like if that's my goal, then I need to make decisions that are in line with that goal. So if an opportunity comes, I'm like, is this going to take away from peace of mind? Is this going to add stress that isn't necessary? And so that becomes like a deciding factor, because if it's going to be something that's not going to make my life better, then I really don't need it. And so that's one of the important things to think about. The other one is financially is, you know, to really think about what you want and be accurate with it. Because if you're not accurate with it, you will make costly mistakes, like trying to build a large net worth when maybe you don't necessarily need to. Some people want it, love it, and thrive in it. Some people don't. I made too many mistakes with that particular goal. And you know, there was this movie. One of the things that I include in every newsletter, you know, is there's this movie. It's called The Gambler, and Mark Wahlberg's in the movie, and John Goodman's in the movie. And there's this scene where Mark Wahlberg, he's a gambler, and he's going to John Goodman to borrow money, and John Goodman has this little conversation with him, and he basically suggests that Mark Wahlberg put himself in what he calls the FU position, which is a position of strength where you don't really have to do anything you don't want to do for money. And I think that's actually a really good principle to try to operate by. Put yourself in this position of strength so that you have complete control of your life and your time.
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie and that specific scene when you brought it up, and the very vulgar word that you used. But ultimately, that's it's the FU position.
Right.
You know, it's just you want to be able to get there because you don't want to have to do what you don't need to do based on what somebody else tells you to do, whatever it might be. And it's funny, going back to, you said something, peace of mind. You know, ultimately it comes down to you want peace of mind. And it's funny because one of the most recommended books every motivational speaker talks about is Think and Grow Rich. But I think there's another book that's even better than that one by Napoleon Hill. It's Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, which that's the book that I love to read.
Yeah.
It's just because ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's just having that peace of mind. Because when you have peace of mind, you don't have that stress. You don't have that anxiety. I know the business that I deal with, you know, in the tax, you know, solving people's tax problems, they're not trying to solve the tax problem. They're trying to solve the anxiety, the lack of peace of mind, the not sleeping. That's what they're trying to solve.
Right.
So peace of mind it's just huge. You know, like you said, you have 20 principles of the Cashflownaire principles, and one of them, we value time over money. Time is perishable and replaceable. Talk about that.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. One of my best friends, actually, he was a partner in some of our real estate investments. He passed away. It was 2 years ago now, but he was telling me he had some stomach pains, and then he went to the doctor and they found a mass, and it turns out he had pancreatic cancer. And you know, you don't win that battle. So, you know, who knows we don't know what the future holds, right? So if you keep putting money as your primary driver, you keep trading away your time, and time is obviously a resource that is not guaranteed. Money is replaceable, time isn't. So, you know, I try not to get involved in anything where I'm trading my time for a paycheck, where like I go sell a home, for example, and I earn one commission. I want to try to be more strategic with how I use my time, so that if I do something that it's not necessarily compensation for that time. It's where I get compensated over and over again going forward. So I work once and I get paid multiple times. And, you know, a great example is writing a book. For example, you write a book and every time someone buys it, you're getting compensated. You wrote the book once and you buy a rental real estate, you buy it once, you get paid. So it's just really understanding the importance of time and the value of time, because most people don't think about it. When they want more money, they just go trade more time. And they're trading away this extremely valuable asset for something that isn't as valuable, which, you know, money's not that valuable. So it's just to try to be very strategic with your time, because it's so incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've really taken from you since I've joined this community and become part of this community, is taking that money to create more income, which basically brings back time. It captures time again. And I know we recently partnered up on an investment, and I started to realize you specifically like to concentrate. One of your major concentrations are mobile homes, and I was shocked when I saw the power of the cash flow that comes from that. You want to talk a little bit about? And this is just one of the things that you do in terms of creating cash flow with mobile homes.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess let me just say this is like, over the years, I've been investing in real estate now for 30 years or so. And I've had commercial properties, I've had apartment buildings, you name it, I've owned it at some point in time. And so that has given me the opportunity to kind of see what works, what's like, and what doesn't. For me, commercial real estate here in the Cleveland, Ohio area was a horrible investment. There's not much demand for commercial space. So I learned a massive lesson there. I mean, and so I had all these properties when the crash hit in 2008. And at this point in time, I also had invested in a few of these manufactured homes. So they're mobile homes. These are homes that were located in a mobile home park. So I would buy the home, the land was owned by the mobile home park. I would rent the home out to a tenant buyer on a rent to own program. And those investments became very profitable because the price I paid for them was very low relative to the income that was available from the asset. So I had all these different assets. The crash hit, everything got slammed except for mobile homes. Those investments became my single best investment. And so after the crash, I was like, you know, I would be a moron not to focus on mobile homes, manufactured homes. And, you know, I could buy them for cash. I didn't need to get a mortgage. And the numbers were just so attractive. If you could get over the whole thing about, I'm going to buy a manufactured home, they depreciate in value. And it's kind of like a new car. You buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, and it depreciates in value. So I'm not buying brand new manufactured homes. I'm buying used manufactured homes, so that depreciation in price has already happened, and I'm buying it after it's been depreciated in price. So they've just been phenomenal little investments. They take work. It's an active investment, but the cash flow is very attractive.
You know, and it's funny because as I saw what you were doing, and one of the things I'm actively doing right now, and I mentioned this to you, you know, my daughter graduates from high school in 5 years. She's going to go off to college, and me and my wife want to figure out, you know, where are we going to live? What are we going to do? And one of the things I'm thinking about is possibly moving to Mexico. There's such a huge expat community that lives down there. And I just finished a book called The Fun Side of the Wall. I just sent you a copy of that book.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I sent you. You should get it in the next couple of days. But one of the things that it talks about is just the cost of living. And it literally was going, and I literally compared the cost of living in one community compared to where I currently live. And it was 65 to 75% less than where I'm currently living. And I live in one of the least expensive places of Southern California. And so I started figuring out these numbers, and I'm going, wow, you know, I can actually live like a king for about $3,000 a month. So then I kind of started figuring out, you know, kind of working my way backwards on this based on the mobile home investments, you know, averaging about $250, $300, you know, monthly income coming from that. I only need 10 to 12 of those, and I could actually live like a king.
Right.
So, and it's amazing how when you figure it out that way through cash flow, how much easier it seems compared to, okay, I need to save $3 million to get that $3,000 a month.
Right. Yeah.
And that's basically what you're teaching here.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I went through. Like after the crash, I sat down and I was adding up our expenses. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, so our cost of living is actually very low, which is one of the reasons why I stay here. I mean, our weather in the winter is not great, but I mean, we could buy a really nice, I could buy a starter rental property for $80,000. You know, the cost of living is very low here. But I sat down, I'm like, at that bigger point in time, I needed maybe it was $6,000 or $7,000 a month. And I'm like, well, heck, I mean, if I can get $300 a month from one of these, how many of these homes did I need? You know, I don't remember the exact thing, but maybe it was around 20 homes.
Right.
I'm like, okay, if I go buy one a month, in 2 years, I'm done. I have offset all of our living expenses.
Right.
And so that's basically what I did. And it's like, you'll be surprised that you don't need this massive net worth if you have the cash flow coming that hits your living expenses. And you can hit that even obviously a lot faster if you're able to relocate to a lower cost area.
Right.
So that's awesome. I know you're excited about this. So I know it's in your future because you've mentioned it once or twice in the past. So
you know what? I'm just starting. I have a lot of friends that actually live overseas, and a lot of them, you know, make their money through the internet. And when you start looking at the amount of money that you can exclude from U.S. income taxes, it starts to go on. Well, this is, you know, we just need a home base because kind of like you, our plan is really to kind of travel quite a bit. You know, whether throughout the U.S. You know, I'm not really kind of big on traveling overseas for some weird reason. I find it amazing how many people from around the world want to come to the U.S. to visit. There's a lot of parts of the U.S. I still haven't seen. So,
well, you know, we went a couple years ago. We did the family thing. We went to London and we did everything in London. Then we went to Paris and then we went to Ireland. And I'm so thankful I went. It was a great experience. But I came home being so grateful for my home. We have a backyard. We have grass, you know, we have air conditioning. In France, we stayed at this Airbnb, no air conditioning. Like we live really well here. And so I think you need to do it and go and experience it because you will have maybe some more gratitude for how well we do.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. One other principle I did want to talk about, and I'm noticing it just by looking at you right now, man, you're looking trim and slim there. Yeah, your jawline's really kind of pronounced there. So
it's makeup.
Your third principle is our health is the most important asset. And we make daily investments to improve our aspects of our health. And I know you're doing something specifically right now, which I'm getting ready to start as well. So I'm looking forward to talk about that.
Well, you know, if my mother died of lung cancer, I guess 10 years ago, and I would go to the chemo with her and I would talk to all these other people in chemo and they were all usually older people. And this one guy said, he's like, you're young. He's like, you don't appreciate your health. You know, it's like, it's your most important asset. And he's like, you guys are stupid. You don't understand. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to him. Right. I mean, if someone older tells me something, I'm going to pay attention to it because they have so much more experience. So from that day forward, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that my health's a priority because if you don't have your health, everything, your quality of life goes down dramatically. Right. And so, you know, I want to be strong. I want to be healthy. I want to have energy. I want to feel good. And so every single day I exercise. I do this, you know, time restricted feeding, which everyone probably does and have heard about. So I just make it a priority. And now, you know, with 2 daughters, exercise is a great stress reliever. Right. So, I love it now. You know, when I first started, I was like, I got to exercise. But now, man, I put some great music on and it helps me think and clear out issues I'm working on in my head. So yeah, it's important. Every day I work out in some fashion every day.
And I 100% agree with you, especially this last week. I was up in Central California. Took the family up there for a couple of days, did some work while I was up there. And it was the last day, Rob, and I'm in the shower, taking a shower. I get out of the shower, and I just go in to put on my pants, literally just put my pants on. And, you stand on one leg to get and I twisted my back. This last 5 days, I could barely walk. I mean, literally crawling. And my daughter says, "Dad, you look like you're 90 years old."
Yeah.
I mean, and it's something so, something so small can have a dramatic effect. And you start to wonder, is this what old age is like if you don't have your
exactly
health?
what it's like.
It's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
And I'm just getting a taste of it at 51. So you start to realize, you know what, you really do have to be in the best shape of your life as you get older,
Well, it's the way I look at it is it's kind of like with investing. Like I can suffer now, or I can suffer late. I can skip suffering now, and I can push all my suffering to down the road. So if I don't invest today, I won't suffer financially. I don't have to find money to buy assets.
Right.
But down the road, I'm certainly going to suffer because I'm not going to have any assets or income from those assets. Same thing with our health. We can suffer a little bit today, and hopefully that reduces future suffering. So, if when I work out every day, I'm breaking a sweat, I'm suffering a little bit, and the hope is that down the road, I won't have some of the challenges we would typically have as we age. That's the hope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things before we wrap up here in a little bit, a lot of my clients are professionals, real estate agents, insurance agents, small business owners. And, a lot of these individuals, kind of like we talked about earlier, are literally working for a paycheck. They're working for that real estate sale, or in the office trying to get that next sale. What would you recommend to them to start thinking about now in terms of creating cash flow?
Well, there's two ways to create cash flow: buy assets or create assets. Okay. So when I say assets, I should say buy income producing assets or create income producing assets. So is there a way within your business that can you create income producing assets within your business that you can leverage into cash flow for your business? I mean, can you create intellectual property? Can you create a course? What can you, from all of your experiences in business, how can you put those experiences into some type of intellectual property that you can leverage into cash flow for your business? And then as you're creating cash flow for your business and you're hopefully extracting some of it, or could you take some of that cash flow to buy income producing assets, whether that's real estate, manufactured homes, dividend stocks, whatever it is. But, the goal is to try to turn $1 today into $1 every year. You don't want to work for one. If you get paid, how can you turn that payment into future income streams?
Gotcha. That's excellent. And I'll tell you how I took that's what you just taught there, and what I've done based on some of your teachings. I have insurance income that comes from Medicare sales. The beauty behind a lot of insurance income, it's also residual income. So but all that money literally goes into one account and actually gets transferred into an HSA or a Roth IRA. And then I'm using that money to purchase the assets.
Yeah.
So it's literally kind of creating that wheel of cash flow. And that's something, if it wasn't for me and listening to your teachings and a lot of the teachings that you teach in the Cashflow newsletter, I just thank you, because now I have an escape plan out of being in this office.
Well, the crazy part is that these assets that are being purchased, it's not your money.
Right.
Your asset, your insurance residual income is buying additional assets for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you can structure things, and it's not easy to try to put most of your money into income producing assets, then you can use that income from those assets to buy more. Like if you don't buy assets, then you're using all of your money for your living expenses,
Right.
and you've got no help from these other sources. So that's super cool what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's the key too, is making sure you're living. And this is what I see with a lot of clients, and is their increased income just creates an increased lifestyle today, not worrying about what's going to happen down the road.
Right.
And that's scary.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to wrap this up, I know you're a voracious reader, and at the same time, we're also, a lot of us just want some entertainment. And one of the things I love to do, I love to watch TV shows or movies that can actually help me in my own personal life in some way, take lessons from. What are the top 2 or 3 books or TV shows that you'd recommend during this time frame?
Like specifically related to coronavirus?
Or not really coronavirus, but books or lessons. Like I thought of one, which you brought it up. It's an old book, Cashflownaire, the Rich Dad Poor Dad's Cashflownaire book.
Oh yeah, the Cashflow Quadrant. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Cashflow Quadrant.
Yeah.
There's some of these books are, it's like for us, these are old books. Right. And I know you like old books, but that book was written, 15, 20 years ago? There's a lot of people who haven't even been exposed to that book before.
Oh, I mean, different books hit different people different ways depending on where you're at. But I would certainly recommend the Cashflow Quadrant, Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you're a business owner, you've got to read Michael Gerber's The E-Myth book, because that will really show you the importance of systems. And once you understand that, then you want to try to put a system in. You can have a system for almost everything in life that's important. And during the crash, I started to read some Stoicism, and I found it immensely helpful. So there's Seneca, and recently I just read a book called The Stoic Challenge, I believe the name of it is, by William Irvine. It's a phenomenal book, and I kind of said it's recommended or mandatory reading for anybody who's in the Cashflownaire membership. It's just because it will show you how to think about challenges in a way that makes your life better, and it changes your perspective, which I think is a critically important thing to do. So, so those are some books to check out. For TV shows, I mean, for pure entertainment, I used to love Billions. Was my favorite show. It's on Showtime, and I would always ask myself, what would this Bobby Axelrod do? And this particular season isn't as good as the prior seasons, but it's still a great show. And anytime I watch it, I'm like, how can I use what I'm learning in this show? Another one, as I recommend, is Yellowstone. And Yellowstone has got Kevin Costner, and it's actually kind of like a mafia movie, but built in the West. And it's a great show. Talks about power and owning land. So those are some great shows. And then, it's funny. I got this book out. I don't know if you can see it, The Godfather. And it's funny because, I bring this up because the movie, people watch the Godfather movies, right? And they're great, but the book is it's way better than the movies. And so I look at this book, and then I realized you built an entire business around the ideas in the Godfather. So if you haven't read these 2 books, they should definitely be on your reading list. Carlos's book.
Actually, one of your newsletters, you talk about how you have the guy, the thinker, the statue.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
So I actually found this. It's right in front of me. The Godfather thinking.
What would he do, right?
Yeah. What
would Don Corleone do?
That's hilarious.
Hilarious. You turn this book into an operating philosophy, which I think is fantastic. So.
Yeah, obviously based on a report that you did quite a while ago. Actually, that was back in Income for Life days. I think you created that report, which was powerful. Well, as we close this off, one of the things that we want to offer our readers and our podcast listeners an opportunity to join our community. We have a newsletter called Cashflownaire Newsletter, and There's going to be a link in the description below where you can actually get a subscription to that. And you're going to get literally 12 to 13 pages on a monthly basis on what we're doing together. You're going to get Rob's, the ideas that he's coming up to create cash flow. I'm going to have tax subjects, tax topics in there specifically. And you're just going to become part of this huge community of literally just right here. We have almost 50, 100 years of experience, hundreds of years of experience when you take the other members of what to do and what not to do in business, and creating that Cashflownaire lifestyle and getting yourself into that FU position in life. That way we don't have to deal with someone else telling us what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, and I just think it's important. We are bombarded. You open your phone and you're bombarded by all this stuff, and it's hard to stay focused today. So, one really good opportunity of being part of this group is that it will, if it will keep you focused on important things. And, especially this year, 2020 has been such a challenging year on so many levels. And it's very easy to get distracted. You turn on the news and it's horrible this and horrible that. And then you start to worry and you're not making forward progress. So just taking time to think about, implement, and focus on important things, I think is especially important right now, considering the challenging year we've had.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rob, you know what? I just wanted to thank you. Really, I truly appreciate you and who you are. And it's hard to tell. It's hard to express the impact you've had on my life, and I truly appreciate you. So
same here, man. I same here. Brother from another mother. Is that what you said?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Again, Rob, I'm looking forward. Maybe let's do this again.
Yeah.
We got so much. I mean, we could talk for hours here, and
yeah, we could talk for a whole week straight.
Yeah,
probably.
No kidding. No kidding. Maybe I'll have to. We'll have to kind of get the families together someday at some vacation spot.
Yeah. Well, next time though, I got some questions for you, so we'll do that next time.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, see you.